Deep Frame Podcast, Episode 1, The Day London Shook. London, September 2025, a city that has seen centuries of history, from empire to post-war rebuilding, from cultural revolution to political turmoil. But on this day, the streets themselves seem to tremble. 150,000 people, men, women, families, poured into central London for a rally unlike any the nation had seen in decades. They came not for violence, not for chaos. They came for their country, for free speech, for the heritage that has been quietly eroded by decades of political correctness and governmental neglect. And they came under the banner of one man, Tommy Robinson, a figure as reviled by the establishment as he is revered by his followers. The march, billed as Unite the Kingdom, was more than a protest. It was a statement. Britain is not done with itself. Britain is not done fighting for its culture. And for many, it was the first time in years that they felt heard, truly heard, in a public, unfiltered forum. The streets of London. By mid-morning, the streets around Hyde Park were clogged with a sea of people waving banners, British flags, and placards reading messages that ranged from simple pride, defend our heritage, to urgent warnings against censorship and the erosion of national identity. Police presence was heavy. Lines of officers formed buffer zones, their faces serious, batons ready. Yet the atmosphere was not one of fear. It was tension, yes, but also a palpable energy of resolve. Families, young professionals, retirees, and students mingled in a massive, peaceful crowd. For most, this was civic participation at its rawest, citizens staking their claim to the right to speak and be heard. Robinson's history is long and controversial, from his early days as a journalist and activist, through stints in prison, to becoming the lightning rod of modern British conservatism. To his supporters, he is a symbol of resistance against an establishment that seeks to silence dissenting voices. To his critics, he is divisive. But the truth of this day cannot be captured simply by labels. The rally itself was a manifestation of deep cultural anxieties about identity, immigration, free speech, and what the future of Britain would look like in the decades to come. The first hours of the rally were peaceful. Families strolled through designated paths, children waved flags, and volunteers handed out pamphlets explaining the aims of the movement. It was a festival of conviction, a political carnival in the truest sense, until tensions began to stir on the outskirts where counter-protesters had gathered and where some attendees felt blocked from reaching the main stage area. The rally begins. Robinson took the stage in the early afternoon. From a distance, the scene was cinematic. A towering platform flanked by Union Jacks with thousands of supporters pressing forward, craning their necks, waving signs. The roar of the crowd was deafening. And then, through the speakers, Robinson's voice cut clearly across the square, measured but impassioned. "We are here to defend our nation," he said, "not against anyone, but for everyone who loves Britain, for everyone who refuses to be silent." Supporters waved banners, some homemade, some professionally printed, slogans for free speech, for national pride, for preserving heritage. Interspersed among the crowd were observers, journalists, and, in the far corners, counter-protesters who shouted, waved signs, and attempted to disrupt the flow of the rally. But for the first hours, the energy remained largely peaceful. People listened, clapped, and chanted along, feeling as if they were reclaiming a city and, in a sense, a nation. Then came Elon Musk. Through a pre-recorded video link, he addressed the crowd. His words were sharp, measured, almost prophetic. Warnings about what he called the rapid erosion of Britain and, controversially, suggestions that parliamentary reform might be necessary if the nation's institutions continued to fail. The crowd responded with a mixture of cheers and contemplative silence. Many saw him as a technological visionary, speaking a truth too few dared to voice. By mid-afternoon, Robinson's speech had reached its climax. Supporters waved their arms, chanted slogans, and sang the national anthem. There was pride, there was defiance, and yet tension simmered at the edges. Some attendees, unable to access the main stage, grew restless. Lines of police attempted to maintain buffer zones, what the authorities called sterile areas, meant to separate the main crowd from the counter-protesters. But in moments like these, even the most peaceful assemblies can teeter toward conflict. And conflict did arrive later in the day. Bottles, flares, and fists would fly. Officers would be injured. Arrests would be made. Yet it's critical to note the majority of the marchers remained peaceful, and their message, their purpose was not violent. For the people of Britain watching, and for Americans observing from across the Atlantic, this was not a story of extremism. It was a story of a people long marginalized in mainstream discourse, reclaiming their voice. As the afternoon sun rose higher over London, the rally's energy shifted. What had begun as a peaceful, proud gathering now found its edges fraying. Some attendees, unable to access the main stage, attempted to push past the sterile areas, zones established by the Metropolitan Police to keep the crowd safe and separate from counter-protesters. But when thousands of people are driven by purpose, barricades can feel like walls of oppression, and that feeling can ignite action. Police officers, numbering in the hundreds, were suddenly caught in the middle. 26 were injured, 4 seriously. The wounds ranged from broken teeth to concussions, possible broken noses, and even a spinal injury. Each number is more than a statistic. Each is a story of someone standing between order and chaos.